Hi everyone, I'm Bryony and today I'm going plastic free. So this video was inspired by a BBC News article I read recently where a woman and her family had originally gone plastic free back in 2008 and decided to try it again more recently to see if it was any easier 10 years later. And she came to the conclusion that it was marginally easier, but there was still a lot of plastic on unnecessary items. However, she and her family were not vegan, and a lot of the products that she found difficult to find plastic-free alternatives to were products that I personally would not consume. So I was curious, how easy is it to go plastic free as a vegan? So today is the 1st of May, and for the rest of this month I'm going to try and avoid as much plastic as I possibly can, and I'm going to collect whatever plastic I do have and see how much less I've produced at the end of the month. I'm really curious to see how easy it is to switch certain products and how much extra work I'm going to have to put in with my grocery shopping. Let's do this. So it's been a month now, today is June 1st, and oh my goodness, this month has been so eye-opening to me. It's been really interesting to do actually. I'm really glad I did try this out. So without further ado, let's get into what I learned throughout this month. So because I was making an effort this month to go plastic free, I decided to try out some different shops to see just how good they were at being plastic free. I went to Whole Foods before I started in May, so I didn't film it, and then later on I decided I wasn't going to go back there because Whole Foods is a pretty pricey place and it's not available or an option for everyone, particularly as it's only in like the affluent areas, so I didn't really want to just go to those sorts of places. But they did have a few of the like pipes that you'll see in the zero waste shop that I went to, where they had things like rice and nuts and other things that you can do. So there were some options there. If you have one of those places local to you and you are able to use them, that's definitely something to bear in mind. But the other places I went to were a zero waste store, my normal supermarket, and also a farm shop, which was kind of interesting. The only zero waste store that's anywhere remotely close to me is about a 40-minute journey by car, which is not the most eco-friendly thing in the world, but this was plastic, so I still wanted to go and try it out. When I got there, it was quite interesting. One thing I hadn't thought about was that they actually wouldn't have had things in stock the same way that supermarkets are. I think we get really used to going to a supermarket and just expecting them to have everything we want in stock. But zero waste stores, they kind of go up and down. So if there's something you specifically want, I do recommend calling ahead if you do have a zero waste store relatively local to you. However, that being said, they did have the one main thing that I really wanted to go there for, which was pasta. You cannot get pasta plastic free anywhere else. Believe me, I tried the supermarkets, I tried a farm shop, I tried looking online, nothing. It all came with some kind of plastic on it. But the zero waste store was the only place I could go that had it in a big tube that you could pop your little container under, put as much in, which was great, and I stocked up in that for this month. And I still haven't finished it actually, so I got enough for a few more weeks, which is great. The zero waste store also had quite a good range of toiletries. So they had things like toilet paper, kitchen towel that was in like paper packaging rather than the plastic wrap that they all come in at the supermarkets. They also had a bamboo toothbrush, which I bought because I was curious to try. I actually really liked that, by the way, too. And they had other options like a metal razor, some shampoo, and several other things which you can see in the little clip I got. Now, I actually didn't get my shampoo from there because just before May started, I was in Waterloo Station in London, where they had this tiny little Lush shop in the corner of Waterloo. And as I had a 15-minute wait for my train, I decided to pop in there and see if they had any of the shampoo bars, which are plastic free. Sure enough, they did, so I was able to buy one, and that was what I tried out this month. And to my pleasant surprise, it worked really well. So I will definitely consider using that, keep on using that in the future, and try the conditioner bar as well. I have plenty of conditioner at the moment, so I deliberately didn't get any for this month because I didn't want to create more waste than necessary or buy unnecessary things. But I'm definitely going to think about using it in the future because the shampoo bar worked really well. I definitely would recommend trying them. The next place I went was to my normal like big supermarket, which is Sainsbury's for me. And this was the first time I got a real shock. When you're looking for plastic, you see it everywhere, and it was virtually impossible. I remember I went around like the entire store and I ended up with just a few items in my basket. That never happens when you go to the supermarket. Like, you always end up with 10 things you never intended to get. But I couldn't do that this month because I could only buy the things that were plastic free. Couldn't get bread. That was one of the things I first noticed. I had to go and get bread from like my local bakery, which fortunately I have one in my village, but not everyone has that option. Things like pasta sauces and stuff, they were relatively easy to find in glass jars, and also things like passata, that was easy to switch to a product that was in a glass jar, and they also tend to come in cardboard boxes. Things that were difficult was getting tea and hot chocolate. I stood by the hot chocolate aisle I think several times trying to work out what they were, and there was another issue I ran into which I'm going to talk about a bit later on in this video as well. So when it came to snacks, I realized very quickly that there were no brands out there, no options at all that had crisps or biscuits or anything like that that didn't have some kind of plastic packaging in it. It was also very difficult with some of the biscuit brands because there's only a few vegan biscuit brands out there anyway, but I did look at the others just to see, and a lot of them, they come in the boxes, but you can't necessarily tell whether there's a plastic sleeve inside there. So it might look completely fine from the outside, but once you open it up, oh no, there's a plastic tray in there. So that was quite frustrating. And the crisp packets, I didn't realise they all had plastic in them, and of course they can't be recycled either, which is a double whammy. So I went online to see if there were any brands out there that had crisps in either, you know, plastic-free packaging or just recyclable packaging, because I remembered that on EasyJet flights they had like these box of crisps, so I wondered if I could get that, but nope, can't buy them. I have to admit I did cave in this month and buy about 3 packs of crisps throughout the entire month, just because I really needed like to have some snacking foods for every now and then. And whilst I could have made crisps, I know I've made them in the past and they can be quite tricky. Well, for me they're quite tricky, so that wasn't something I could easily do, and I decided that I had agreed to go as plastic free as possible for the month, and that was just something I wasn't going to be able to be plastic free on. And the last shop that I went to was a farm shop, and this was quite surprising to me. They did have a pretty good range of like fruit and veg which were outside of plastic packaging. However, they also had plastic bags waiting for you to put the products into. When I went a bit further around the store, I did then find these bigger brown paper bags, so they did have the option at least, but I was quite surprised to see the plastic ones there. And it was only really the fruit and veg you could get, everything else was still covered in plastic, so the only things I got there were the fruit and veg and also a bottle of my absolute favourite apple juice, which was a big plus because I don't get that very often. So one thing I ended up doing this month was a lot more cooking and baking. First of all, things that are impossible to get in a vegan form without plastic is vegan milk and vegan butter. So I had to make both these things. And I will admit at first, when I started thinking about this month, I was like, well, making vegan butter is going to be a pain in the ass because you need this soya lecithin or lecithin or something or other, and I don't know where I get that, and also it's not an ingredient I have just hanging around the house. But then I found a really simple recipe that I tried out and it actually worked. I had to tweak it like 4 times throughout this month, but finally the last batch I made recently actually ended up really good, and I think I'm going to continue doing that. I will leave the original recipe I found down below, but I did tweak it a lot, so I'm going to do a video specifically on that butter as well, so stay tuned for that. And a vegan milk is very easy to make. The milk that I personally drink is cashew milk, which just involves you soaking a bunch of cashews in water overnight, rinsing them the next morning, chucking them in a blender with some water, some salt and a bit of sweetener, blitz it up, pour it into a bottle, good to go. You can also filter it. So the first time I didn't filter it because they said, oh, cashew milk, you don't need to filter it like almond milk. And I was thinking, brilliant, because that was the pain in the ass part of it. I didn't filter it, and then I decided it really did need filtering. So the second time I put it through a muslin cloth, which is really, it's very annoying actually. It's a lot of effort. You have to squeeze it and everything. And the third time I put it through a sieve, and that was a good compromise. I found enough of the sedative was stopped that it wasn't like getting into tea and coffee and stuff. I also ended up doing a lot more baking. I ended up making cupcakes, apple crumble and biscuits I think this month. Although I wasn't able to find any like savoury recipes that I really particularly fancied in terms of snacks, so that was the thing I found I was craving. I also didn't remember until much later in the month that I could have made popcorn and just put some salt on it, and I swear I did have some popping corn at some point, but I either gave it to my parents or somebody else used it while they were here because I cannot find it at all. That I did also notice I could get plastic free at both, I think, the Zero Waste store and at Whole Foods. If you do have one near you, they do it in where you can just get a brown paper bag and get it from out of those chutes. So that is an option for plastic free, but I couldn't be asked to go get it later in the month. Actually, cooking my main meals like lunch and dinner wasn't really that different because I cook anyway. Raw ingredients, I quickly learnt, are much easier to find plastic free than any of the other like preservative filled stuff. Fruit was kind of hit and miss. There were certain things you definitely could get without plastic packaging, like apples and oranges, but there were some things you just could not, like raspberries and strawberries. you couldn't find them anywhere at the supermarket. Even the farm shop had these in like plastic packaging, although they did have these little sort of cardboard boats of blackberries, which I got as well because I quite like blackberries. The only place I managed to get plastic-free raspberries from was Abel & Cole, which is like an online delivery service, and they sell like organic fruits and veg, but they're also committed to producing less plastic now, which is great. So I needed some new household gloves, which they had here. Not too expensive as well. So these are latex. And also come in a cardboard packaging. I'm hoping there's no plastic in there. The kitchen towels, they do come in plastic packaging, but it's the only one I've found that has the compostable packaging. And then these are degradable refuge sacks, which I've used before and which I think are really good because obviously we all need these sorts of things, but they're quite hard to find in an eco version. So if your budget can stretch to that, I would definitely recommend Abel & Cole. I've used them before in the past and they're really great for that sort of stuff. But as I was saying before, raw ingredients like flour, sugar, if you're not vegan, butter and eggs, they're all really easy to find in supermarkets without plastic packaging. So if you can cook, you'll be fine. Fortunately, I can cook, so this wasn't too much of an issue for me, but it was just the extra effort involved in doing that. But I also had quite a bit of fun this month experimenting with getting back into cooking because I used to do it quite a lot and I haven't done it recently, so that was quite nice. So of course, I'm a woman and I have periods, so the usual disposable pads and tampons at supermarkets are just filled with plastic. Actually, fun fact, a typical disposable pad has about as much plastic in it as 3 of the 5p carrier bags. It's a lot of plastic, but fortunately my job is to sell reusable menstrual products, so cloth pads and menstrual cups are something that I've been using for 5 years and I've loved anyway because they are way more comfortable. If you've not heard of them before, check out the rest of my channel. I have loads of videos on these products and you can also get them from my website Precious Stars down below. So something else that I noticed this month is I produced much less rubbish than usual. I was only having to empty out my kitchen bin whenever it started to smell rather than because it was full, which is a big change. I think I've only had to empty out actually twice this month because there's so little rubbish that I've been producing. In that way, I've been really good about making sure everything that's recyclable is recycled and putting the plastic into the carry bag, which could have reduced it a bit, I admit, but still, like, it was a lot less than I expected. But that brings me on to the plastic that I wasn't able to avoid this month, which I have put into this bag. Now, I only put within here the plastic that I bought and used within May, so if something I'd bought before May had plastic in it and it finished, I threw that one away. I didn't keep it in this particular bag because I thought, well, I wasn't trying to be plastic free back then, but this is the stuff that I used this month. So this is just a container that held my new microphone, which I'm currently using on this camera. These are some plastic bags that came with some cleaning stuff that I completely forgot I was being plastic free for when I bought. Again, another plastic container for some cleaning stuff. This is a dishwasher cleaner because halfway through this month my dishwasher decided to stop working, which was fun. Dishwasher powder, by the way, actually was really easy to find plastic free. The rinse aid was more difficult, but you can just use white vinegar for that, which you can definitely get in glass bottles, so that's a top tip. It's cheaper as well, actually. You can also make dishwasher cleaners, but I was just wanting to be really thorough and I tried this out. I ended up finding out actually that the problem with my dishwasher was nothing to do with it being clean, but to do with the propellers. Guess what was blocking them? Pieces of plastic. This was a piece of plastic that came on some of the envelopes from my letters that I got. This is a plastic bag with a cap in from the Chinese meal that I had because I decided to try and see how bad they were. I did know from the past that it would come in a plastic bag, but actually a surprising amount of the stuff the food was in was just tinfoil boats which could be recycled and a paper top, so I was kind of impressed by that. And also a bag of kettle chips. This is the sea salt and crushed black pepper crisp packet, which is not recyclable and has plastic, and when I gave in and needed some crisps. Now, while I was going through this month and realizing that it was quite difficult to be plastic free and that there were going to be some items I was going to be buying again, I started looking at how recyclable those items are, because if you have to get something with plastic, the least you can do is make sure that you can recycle it. And this made me realize that actually something I hadn't realized was that not all products have recycling info on them. I thought this was required, but apparently it's not. For instance, like I said earlier when I was trying to buy the hot chocolate, Only certain brands would have any sort of info on them about whether the packaging was recyclable or not. The supermarkets, by the way, the two that I used were Sainsbury's and Waitrose. They were both really good. They have clear recycling info on almost all of their products, so it's really easy to know whether you need to recycle them or not. But the individual brands, some of them didn't have anything on them, and some of them only had these really confusing symbols, which not everyone knows what they mean. I certainly didn't know exactly what they meant until I went and looked them up online. Overall, things I learned this month was that A, it was much harder to be plastic free than I originally thought. B, I ended up doing much more cooking and ate a little bit healthier because of it, which probably isn't a bad thing. And C, I'm going to be making a few switches when they're easy, but overall I think I will end up slipping back into my old habits. So we do need the government to intervene and make some changes that mean these companies have to find alternatives, because otherwise we're just going to continue on as we always have done. I really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.